right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Marriage Matters with Ken and Shar. Glad to have you in with us. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing good.
Good?
Yes, and I'm excited about this little topic that we're talking about today.
This is a really fun one.
I think this one, as we look back from when we first got married, and even in our dating life, though we had no clue what we were doing, I feel like this one was the hardest one that we had in our first year of marriage.
And learning these truths, and hopefully the tool that we're going to be getting in your marriage bags today, your toolkits, that this was a hard one for us to learn.
Well, I don't think we knew what we were doing, and then when we started bumping into these things, we didn't even know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
It would just cause an argument.
Yeah.
And everyone had their own perspective, and we didn't seem to want to know what the other person's perspective was.
And we only knew our own.
We only wanted to communicate our perspective and try to convince the other one that we were right. So this brings me back to so many things as we were sitting here before this episode started recording.
We were talking about,
I thought of 10 things right away that in the first 6 months of our marriage.
Stubbed our toe?
It was like, remember this, remember that, remember this, remember this. And it's funny, I don't think that we're going to be different than most people that are listening to this, that are ready, that are just getting married or in premarital counseling at this point.
Yeah, you make a good point. Sometimes we'll be working on a tool that I'm going, okay, I know there's people that will use this, but many won't, right? This is This is one that is relative to everybody. Again, this series that we're in, entitled So You're Getting Married, is targeted at premarital relationships. Maybe young people heading towards engagement or engaged heading towards a wedding.
Or just married.
Yeah.
Just married.
But whether you're premarital or you've been married a long time, this tool is important.
Yes, you use it the rest of your life, but at the beginning of a relationship, especially a marriage, this is pivotal.
So you're going to thank us. You're going to send us a thank you note, because we're going to save you a lot of grief today, right?
Yes, hopefully.
So what we're talking about is expectation and disappointment. We want to kind of start off with saying we go into depth into this topic a lot. More in depth in episodes 17 and 18, I believe. They're titled simply Expectation, Disappointment, Parts 1 and Part 2. So you can look in our catalog for the podcast, and they can jump right there if they want to go into this a little bit more in depth.
This one is basically just for premarital or just being married on just a little splash of information of this tool. But if you do want it more in depth, go back and listen.
Honestly, we'd encourage you to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the core truths that we love to share when it comes to gaining a right theology for marriage, which we're big on. We think there's a lot of, even in the Christian world, a lot of misunderstanding about what God designed this to be, even why he designed marriage.
Well, I don't think I don't think most people even think about a theology for marriage.
No.
We didn't.
No.
We just thought, okay, we're two Christians, we're in love, let's get married.
We should figure this out, right?
Yeah, it should be easy peasy, right?
Yeah. But when you explore God's word, it's amazing.
It is.
What is there to be learned about why he designed marriage and what he designed it to look like very specifically. So that's what we do. And we've broken that down into a number of things, this right theology for marriage. But one of the core tenets of that is simply this: marriage is hard.
Yes, we find that out very quickly.
I don't think, I'm looking across the table at Charlene, and I'm thinking, I don't know that either of us realized that marriage would pose the difficulties for us that it did.
That would be as challenging as we thought it would, because we loved each other so much. We thought that we would skip that part. Well, we didn't.
Oh, dude, love conquers all.
Yeah,
man. We're not going to have a ripple at all in the world. And you find out very quickly, that, hey, this thing is hard.
It's no joke hard.
Yeah. And it's hard, not because God designed it hard. Let's be clear.
That's true.
Not because God, the designer, had a bad design. It's that we're fallen. We're broken. Sin has damaged us all.
And may I point out, we're two different people.
True.
With two completely different backgrounds.
Yep. Different experiences. We're not the same. We don't think alike. Yeah. And then you throw into all that mix that there's an unseen adversary
Exactly.
that hates all that God has created. And because God created this and designed it for
Yep.
to display his glory and for man's highest good, well, of course, there's an adversary that hates it and wants to destroy every single marriage.
No
So
wonder it's hard.
yeah, you put all that together, and this is no joke hard,
It's
man.
like, can we do this?
Yeah.
No, we can't without the power of the Holy Spirit. That's for sure.
So because we're fallen and human, it's not beyond our capacity at all to fail each other's expectations, to fail at times. And so that's what we want to talk about is.
And also, may I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, fail each other's expectations, but then not even realize that we have these expectations.
Or we have them, they're just unreasonable.
Right.
So,
right.
So there's two sides of this coin. Have I failed to meet some expectations in Charlene? Absolutely. She's had to deal with that. I've had to deal with failed expectations. It is also true, the other side of the coin is that I've had some that were utterly unreasonable. I don't even know where I got them, but I had them, and they left me frustrated and her wounded.
I agree.
Right?
And vice versa.
Right.
I had a huge line of expectations that I didn't realize were expectations.
Right.
And they were in my mind, but I never communicated them with you.
Right.
And I was very frustrated when you didn't read my mind and know what I wanted you, to be like or to do. So
particularly for you couples on your way to marriage, we really want you to start putting your thinking caps on right now and think about, okay, they're talking about the things that I expect from my spouse to be, right? If you're a married person, we want you to really start thinking about what's floating around in my heart. What do I expect for them? Because the reality is you may not realize this, but you have hundreds, maybe even thousands of them.
Hundreds of thousands.
They're floating around everywhere in your heart. Now, let's define what an expectation is real quick. An expectation is way more than a hope, something you hope occurs in your marriage or something you would desire to see happen in your marriage. It's something that you expect. And when it's failed, you had an expectation of it because you're left with some things, right? You're left with frustration and irritation at your spouse, a judgmental heart. You judge, they failed you. You're judging them having failed this expectation you had. That results in anger. Sometimes even a really deep-seated anger that really changes the culture of your whole marriage.
Exactly.
And then lastly, some self-pity. And that kind of in our head sounds like, well, man, am I the only guy in the world that has to put up with X, Y, or Z or something like that? And you begin to pity yourself because that which you expected didn't occur.
Well, and on that note, I think that when I look back at my expectations and even expectations I have now, I think they're reasonable. I do.
Yeah.
No, I truly do. Because I'm thinking of they're reasonable for me.
Right.
So shouldn't they be reasonable for you?
Right.
And not realizing that I did not marry myself.
Right.
I married a completely different person that looks at the world completely different.
Right.
And who has different experiences in their past. And I think they're totally reasonable. And I really do.
Right. But many of them, we find out as we go, they're not.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So
what I'm wanting to get across though right now, I think the first time I've ever thought about it is I do think my expectations are reasonable.
Of course you do.
Yeah. I do. And I've never really thought that before, but I look back and go, yeah, no, this should be reasonable.
And if, now here, that's what make me think. And if you hadn't married me, they might be for some other guy. But you married me, dude.
Oh, that's good. Well,
okay,
there you go.
Let's talk about where they come from. Where do you get them? Where do people get their expectations?
I think, for me, where I've gotten mine is my family life before I was married.
Okay.
And
your experiences in
the
life.
Positives and the negatives of that.
Good point.
So some things were negative and I did not want
You're
that
expecting that I would never do those things.
right.
Give an example of that.
An example of that. Now, okay, my dad, God bless him, I love that man. But
He's with the Lord now.
He is with the Lord, and he was such a wonderful father, but he was not good at taking care of cars, nor taking out the trash, nor taking care of the lawns.
Okay, so you came in, you're 19 years old, you're marrying
Yes.
me, who had no dad in
Family
my
life,
life. There was a
right.
divorce that took
Right.
place, so I was raised in a single mother home.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what a spark plug was. I didn't
Right.
know, and cars were Greek to me.
You never did any kind of
Never.
yard work or
No,
took out the trash.
No.
You're not domestic at all.
no, zero.
And my dad wasn't either. My dad was a wonderful provider and a sweet man, but
So you came
so
in
but it bugged me. See, the
Right.
thing is, it bugged me that
So
he
you're
didn't do
expecting
those
that I
things.
what?
Yeah, because I don't want.
Right.
I want my husband to do those things.
Right.
But as I look back and I ask my sisters, see, none of those things bugged my sisters about it. That's personality.
Yeah.
So I was a little OCD girl
Yeah.
that cleaned my room and made my bed every day. Well,
Right.
most people aren't like that. So that bothered me.
Right.
And so
you're totally right. We get so many of our expectations, I of you and you of me,
Mhm.
they came from our life,
Mhm.
what we saw, right? Other places they come from. Too much, I'll be honest, too
Mhm.
much TV, too much Hallmark, okay? Can I just say
Yes.
it? Too much Hallmark.
Yes. Exactly.
Right? So I think that what we see in pop culture around us can
Mhm.
shape expectations that we
Mhm.
have, that it'll always look like this or it'll
Right.
always look like that.
Or watching other people,
You bet.
thinking that their relationship is all together, especially social media.
Right.
And so you get a lot of expectations
That's a
from
good
that.
point.
You don't see their whole life. You're not living with them. So you're only seeing what they want you to see or what they want you
Right.
for what they
Sure.
want to portray.
Absolutely. Right.
So to make you jealous
Right.
of their perfect relationship,
Right.
which you know it isn't, but
And if you're taking your cues from
social media.
yeah, from people's Twitter feeds and
Right.
what's the other Instagram, all that stuff, then it's easy to develop expectations that just aren't even in the ballpark of
Right.
what's real.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So here's what happens. We have this expectation. We'll talk about some of them that we stubbed our toe on very
Mhm.
early.
Mhm.
But what's killing a couple, what was killing a young couple like us, is this gap between what was expected creeping around in our hearts.
Mhm.
I had these expectations,
Mhm.
hundreds of them, over many things.
Mhm.
So the gap between what's being expected
Mhm.
and what's being achieved by your partner is
Huge.
the problem.
Right.
It's hurting us,
Mhm.
right? I have an expectation. It doesn't get met. The achievement, what you're achieving, I don't care whether it's financial expectation, spiritual expectation, sexual expectation. When that far less is achieved, it's that dissonance, that distance
Right.
between those two that's killing us. So that's what creates the frustration,
Mhm.
the anger, the
Mhm.
growing bitterness,
Mhm.
and sometimes even a real adversarial
Right.
nature between two people, right?
Right.
So what we're talking about is how do we avoid that trap of failed expectations? How do we get rid of it? How do we close that gap so that we are, by the way, let me say this. There's no worse feeling in my life than when I look at Charlene and I know I've let her down.
Mhm.
I hate failing
Mhm.
expectations. I
Mhm.
don't like it. She doesn't like it with me. If you love your partner, you don't like it either. So
Mm-mm.
closing this gap and understanding the dangers of expectation disappointment is a real big deal.
Well, I just wanted to point out, I wrote down a couple of things,
All right.
more than a couple, of areas that we really stubbed our toe on
Okay.
when we first got married.
Let's go. Bring
And
it.
even in our dating life, but really until you're living in the same home, you don't realize what it's like to actually live with someone.
Right.
And you love them to no end, but all of a sudden you're just left feeling empty.
Right.
And that's what happened to me, and I know to you too, over some areas. These were some of the few areas, just some of them,
Mhm.
because we had many
Yeah.
that we
And
stubbed
they're
our
common.
toe
Look,
on. Yeah,
we're common.
it's
This
very
is
common.
common to every couple.
Uh-huh.
Shoot.
So, okay, one was the laundry issue. We did not have a washer dryer. You worked in the oil fields and you had the worst, grossest oil clothes,
Yeah, I did.
and you didn't want to go to the laundromat with me.
No. Did you expect me to go?
Well, I figured they're your clothes, you know? So, okay, that was one big, huge thing. Finally, you know what he did is he bought me a washer dryer.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right.
So we closed that one. Who cleans the house? Because we were both working full time.
Yep.
Who goes?
Okay, let's go. Let's take a little deeper dive.
Yeah.
How clean is the house
You're
supposed to
right.
be? There's that expectation. How
Right.
clean is she
Right.
expecting me to be?
Right.
And how many? I mean, we've talked to a lot of couples where a big beef between them, something actually damaging them,
Oh, totally.
is the wife isn't. Oh, I'm being careful here.
No, she
doesn't keep the house as clean
as he
as
wants
he
it to be.
expected.
Even
So
though they
he's
might be
frustrated all the time.
even though they might be working full time, both
Right.
of them.
Right.
So okay, that's one thing. Two things, and then grocery shopping and cooking the food.
Okay.
Okay, those things we just usually went out because I didn't want to cook, you
Right.
didn't want to cook,
Right.
and we were both working.
Right.
So car upkeep. Now that was a huge thing for me because
Yeah.
I just told you about my dad in the past.
Sure.
I wanted someone, and we actually talked about this before we got married, if you
Now,
recall.
this one we actually did discuss.
Because it
sure.
meant so much to me that I
Yeah.
don't get stranded
Yeah.
somewhere in a broken down car.
Yeah.
That you would do the oil changes and take care of the car.
Right.
And
Always keep. She asked me before we married, keep me in a running car that I don't have to worry about.
exactly. And then
I don't want to be stranded.
I don't want to be stranded. It happened to me too many times in my
Yeah.
teenage years.
Right.
So we did talk about that, and you agreed.
Yep.
And has done an excellent job. Who pays the bills and
Okay.
does the budgeting?
Yeah.
Our spiritual life.
Yeah.
That one we went round and round and round the
Yeah.
first year of our marriage. What church we were going to
Yeah.
go to, what denomination we were going to go to.
Oh, think about it. Okay, let's just be real here.
Mhm.
How many couples again? And again, if you're heading towards marriage,
Mhm.
listen up.
Mhm.
Get this. There are expectations, even spiritually,
Mhm.
that you have of one another.
Yep.
They're physical, they're family, they're housekeeping, there's
Mhm.
financial, and spiritual. How many women have voiced frustration, again, even anger, that their husbands don't, quote, they're not leading them
Right.
spiritually.
Right.
They're not functioning the way their husbands thought they would
Mhm.
spiritually. In other words, what the wife is telling us is she had a picture in her head of how
Yep.
Bill was going to operate that way, and he's not doing that. He's not. So she's frustrated and angry and let down, and oftentimes the guy doesn't even know what the expectation is, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But
it's a huge one.
big spiritual is a big one.
And I'm just naming a couple that we had.
Yeah.
Also, in-law family gatherings.
Okay.
You know, do you go to church? Do you go to your mom's house every Sunday after church and have a family dinner after you get married?
Right.
Every single week.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, those things.
How your married life fits into your extended family now.
Right. Right. And then the hobbies and the sports.
Oh, that's big.
That was a big one for us.
Yeah.
With your sports and what you
Hobbies,
like to
sure.
do.
Mhm.
And in our intimate life.
Yep.
Those
That's
were the
huge.
ones that were that would kick our little rear end every so often.
Well, you just about covered all of life there, huh?
Well, at least
There's
no,
not
there's
much.
more. There's more. I can think of much more.
Yeah, the arenas are extended family where they fit. What will our relationship with them be? There's a social life that two people have expectations in. How busy are we going to be?
Right.
Do we want our house filled up with people every night, 3 nights a week? Someone else can be a homebody, and they come into a marriage expectation is privacy. They don't want anybody in their house. I don't want people tromping through here. I don't want to play cards with friends. I don't want Bible studies in my house. And the other person got married thinking, we are going to have a gas.
You know, Kenny, I remember that we were going to a very young church when we first got married, which was one of our biggest issues for the first probably 6 months because I did not want to go there. And after we did settle in, we were asked to have a house church in our home. And of course, Kenny says yes, because he says yes to everything. And of course, he thought I would be completely on board, which I was, I guess. And Then I remember, though, every week before they came, I would have to kill myself cleaning my
Cleaning, yep,
house.
getting it ready.
It killed me
Yeah,
because, of course, it had to be perfect in my eyes.
right.
And then there was the expectation that I did not like to say much because I'm pretty shy and pray out loud. I was not comfortable with that. And my husband, who's leading the group, would call on me to pray every single week. And he had that expectation of me, which it took me out of my comfort zone. It wasn't bad, but those kind of things can really get to you as a married couple.
You know, you may be listening going, "Well, that's just small potatoes,"
Oh,
but
no.
these things can
No.
fester. Like what she just
Mhm.
mentioned, babe, I was just I was listening, there's actually a couple expectations that were floating around in my heart. One was
Mhm.
social,
Mhm.
filling our house with
Right.
life all the
Right.
time, right? Well, that put a burden on you,
Mhm.
right?
Because you weren't thinking of, "We
No,
need to clean the
no,
house, let them
no,
come over, and it's dirty," and you didn't care.
no. So, secondly, there's a spiritual
Mhm.
expectation that we really fumbled around
Yes.
with early on,
Yes.
in terms of, again, praying out loud and
Mhm.
even styles of worship. Charlene
Right.
came from a very conservative background. I
Mhm.
came from a more of a charismatic,
Mhm.
and I thought, why don't you lift hands to the Lord? Why don't you do that? And there was this, I thought what I felt was everybody should operate like
Right.
me.
And
And
as you told me
exactly.
very much, you should be doing this.
Right. And so that expectation I had just as an immature young
Mhm.
19-year-old kid, I'd only known the Lord a year,
Mhm.
right? It hurt her.
Yeah,
It
it
made
did.
her feel inadequate or
Mhm.
those things. So I think the real check here
Mhm.
is, or the real reality is that there's stuff that's creeping around in all of our hearts when we approach marriage
Right.
of what life is going to be like,
Mhm.
from our sexual life,
Mhm.
family life, social life, our financial life,
Mhm.
how well someone's going to provide, or
Mhm.
how disciplined they'll be in their spending, or whatever. And two people can had two completely different
Right.
expectations. And this is, again, it creates that gap between what I'm expecting and what is being achieved. And now we're in trouble.
Yes.
We're starting
Now
to get frustrated with each other.
now we have some conflict
Yeah.
and we don't know how to resolve it.
Right.
And that's what we want to go into very quickly
Right.
here. Like we said, the expounded version is in episodes
17 and 18.
17 and
Right.
18. But this is just a little snippet of
Yeah.
how you work through this easily.
Right.
Just
So
easily.
so here's how this goes. We're gonna there's language that we learned. This is what,
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
honest, we stumbled
Mhm.
into, and it's been a part of our life, how we operate when it
For a
comes,
long time.
because I came in with a lot of expectations. She did too. We fumbled through them.
Mhm.
We hurt one another. We had some
Mhm.
many teary
Many.
nights trying to work through it. And what eventually came out the backside of all
Mhm.
that was, um,
I'd say in year 12.
it was right around, yeah,
Yeah, it was about year 12.
yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the language that we learn to use. Number one, picture your heart filled with creeping little you don't even know you have them. You've
No.
never thought through them,
Mm-mm.
but they're there, and they're there because when they get failed,
Mhm.
you're frustrated,
Right.
starting to get
That's how
angry.
you know.
Right. That's how you know you got an expectation. So let's do this. Let's remove all those, we call them little potholes.
Mhm.
You're going down the road of life together, happy as could be, and then bam, you hit one,
Mhm.
and it just rattles your teeth a little bit. You just hit a failed expectation. You
Mhm.
had an argument about something.
Right.
So let's eliminate all the potholes. Let's empty out our heart from
Mhm.
all expectations.
Mhm.
So I expect nothing from you.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, okay, is that the wise thing to do? Is that a healthy thing to do? So now I don't expect you to come home tonight. You can stay out all night. You can have other men. You can spend all my money snorting cocaine up your nose. You can do
Mhm.
any. You don't have to do anything, and I will love you without condition.
Yeah, and of course we know that doesn't
Yeah,
work.
we know how unhealthy that
Mhm.
is, right? So what we're saying is some expectations are good. They're
Mhm.
healthy. They belong here. others aren't healthy, and they lead to this kind of gap between
Right.
us and conflict between us. So how do we tell the difference? So we've got an empty heart here. I expect nothing from Charlene. So I'm going to put a filter over the top of my heart, and I'm only going to allow back in those things that are
biblically revealed.
Those two words. So now I only expect from Charlene the things that are clearly biblically revealed.
Which are a lot of things.
It is a lot. I'll give some examples. Fidelity. Can I have other women? Can she have other men? No. Can I even let men threaten that, or other women be a threat to that?
Right.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
This is exclusive.
Yes, and you can expect kindness.
Kindness, be kind to one another. There's a level of
honesty,
human dignity, because she's a creation of God that she's worthy of, right? So there's a level of respect.
And honesty, everything in the...
Honesty is a big one. Lying is a sin,
Yeah.
right? So everything that the Bible clearly reveals about me as as
a Christian,
my wife has every right to expect, because I have declared myself to be a follower of Jesus.
Right.
So when I fail those, she has every right to confront me about them, talk to me about them.
Right.
And I got to deal with that. She can expect that, and I can expect that. So all these big whopping things, and it's usually fidelity, honesty, respect, right? She can't swear at me and cuss at me. I can't shake her by the shoulders and wound her. And so all that's gone, and each other has a huge right to expect those same things. But see, here's the rub. That doesn't cover the things you were talking about.
No, like the car being taken care of.
Who takes care of the checkbook? Well, are there checkbooks anymore? I mean, who balances the bank account, right?
Yeah, right?
Who pays the bills?
Right.
Who weeds the backyard flower bed, right? So
who takes care of the dog?
Yeah, you can't turn. Who feeds Fifi, right?
Or who walks the dog?
So you can't turn to page 298 in your Bible and it say, okay, if you're getting married, this is who walks the dog and this is who pays the bills.
Expectations 1 verse 1.
Yeah. It doesn't have that chapter in the Bible.
It doesn't.
So what it is, the Lord has left us to lovingly work this out, right? And this is the language that we use to work that out. Beyond the things that are biblically revealed, I only have the right to expect from my wife the things that have been mutually agreed upon. So let's stop there.
Okay.
That's half the sentence that we're going to give you. That means that if we haven't talked about who keeps the checkbook, who changes the oil in the car, then her anger at me or growing bitterness or frustration at me is completely misplaced.
Exactly right.
Right? That's a you problem.
That's right.
If we've not discussed that and mutually agreed that, okay, hon, I'll be responsible to empty the trash. That's my job. Then her frustration at me not emptying the trash is a her problem, not a me problem.
Right.
Sorry, it's to be you, but that's the score, man. So, but we're not done with the sentence. So, but what that tells us is that if we have not come to that mutual agreement, then I'm never entitled to any of my anger or frustration at my wife, right? The sentence goes on, things that are mutually agreed upon as necessary and attainable.
Right.
And this really is where this demands a lot of loving dialogue.
It does.
Talking.
It does. And it doesn't happen just in 1 or 2 sentences.
Right. No.
This would be 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
In some arenas.
Some of these issues, right, they took us a long time to find out where the win-win is.
That's a good word.
What can I expect? Do we have a mutual agreement upon this?
Is this attainable for you at this time of your life?
See, those are big questions. The one who has the expectation is asking the other, is this attainable for you? Can I expect this? Can you attain that? Let's be real. Let's just talk about one that we know is a struggle. We're going to, if there's children in the car, if there's children in the room, you might want to take a minute and cut them loose, because we're going to talk about marital intimacy for just a quick second. I'm picking this topic. Sean didn't even know I'm going to do this, but it's one that is is often comes up in
Yes.
young marriages, particularly
Yes.
as a struggle,
It does.
right? And it wasn't our own,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
I came in with certain expectations
mhm.
that weren't met. There is no page in the Bible to say the frequency of marital intimacy in your first year should be X times per month.
Mhm,
We just don't get that in the
mhm.
Bible, right? So we've got to work out this issue, or I'm going to constantly be feel rejected,
Or
and
vice
she's going
versa.
to
Yeah.
constantly feel
Right.
pressured,
Or
right? And
mhm,
I love her just for that, right?
mhm, mhm.
So that was a real struggle for us, and we would have hard nights, man.
Yeah.
You just don't understand me, honey, and she'd say, "You don't understand me," and there was a big gap
There
between
was a
what was
big gap.
expected
Mhm,
and what was being achieved, and it was hurting us, right?
mhm.
So we worked for a long time, and we didn't have this language, so we didn't know how to get through this, and we
No,
didn't do it very well. But
no.
over time, this language became important to us. Are we mutually agreed about this expectation? And is this attainable for you? And she would ask me, is this necessary for you? Let me give you an example. What was my expectation? I didn't know it, but evidently coming into marriage, I expected that intimacy would be on demand, kind of like whenever I want,
Mhm,
right? I
mhm.
hate to say that. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I think that's what was floating around in there.
Right.
So every time, due to fatigue, it's 2 in the morning or whatever it is,
Or
where
just life
or
gets
just
in the
life,
way.
I would feel again rejected,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So, which only hurt her the more.
Well,
So,
and the way you dealt with that rejection, or you felt that was rejection,
right.
is that you would
Oh, I'd
throw
pout
you'd throw
and
a fit.
oh yeah, I was like a little 5-year-old in a sandbox, not
And
getting my way.
exactly,
Right,
and then say things that were hurtful,
right,
and which was not probably,
right,
gonna help your situation,
right,
and we would get into an argument, and I started feeling extremely loved for only one
right,
thing, and I felt like he was unpleasable,
right.
and it bothered me.
Yeah.
I felt taken advantage of.
So we were challenged by
Mhm,
this.
mhm.
What came out was once we understood what was necessary. So I had to ask myself, is it necessary on demand? Am I going to die?
Right.
And I thought, look, 40 years of ministry. I've performed hundreds of memorial services,
Mhm.
and I've never buried one person who died for lack of sex.
Right.
Not one,
Right.
not even one.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So it answered the question, am I going to die here? Right.
Yeah,
The
right.
answer is no. So get a handle on this.
Right.
Right. So no, it wasn't necessary on demand.
Right.
And I would ask her, well, can I kind of expect maybe this level of frequency, let's say?
Mhm.
Can we up the game a little bit to this and like almost on demand? And she would be honest and say,
Mhm.
now with 2 kids here and
Right.
no, but you can will this work for you? Will this be often enough
Mhm.
for you know to
Mhm.
I love you and I care about you and I want to please you? And I said, okay, let's I think we found our win-win.
Right, right.
So
So we
we
wouldn't
found what
argue.
was both necessary.
Right.
It was necessary for me not once a month. My eyes get crossed. I get that monkey on my back and I'd get
Mhm.
moody.
Mhm.
So I said, well, every X period of time, I start really getting nutty here, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so she's beginning to understand me.
Mhm.
And we found this rhythm in life
Right.
that was the win-win.
Well, I think what we found too, I think you'll agree with me, is we could communicate about the issue without feeling, one was accusing one of something or blaming someone, that
Great point.
we could talk about it reasonably
Great point.
and express our feelings. And when I could put me in your place and you in my place
That was
and
big.
empathize
Yeah.
with what the other was feeling, I think that's when we had
Some breakthrough.
some breakthrough in
Yeah.
this arena,
Yeah.
because we couldn't get in each other's heads.
Right.
And when we finally started thinking, this is what it makes him feel like, we went, if it was your love language also.
Yeah.
So you had to combat that. That's the
Yeah.
way you felt loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to realize that.
Yeah.
And it was complicated a little bit. But since we did love each other and we wanted to have a healthy, intimate life,
Right.
and we enjoyed our intimate life, we wanted to get it right. And we didn't want to keep stubbing our toe on this area for the
Right.
rest of our married life. That's
Right.
silly. So we had a lot of dialogue
Right.
about it.
And you have to.
Some arenas take a lot of prayerful conversation.
Yeah. So our encouragement is stay at it.
Right.
Don't give up. If you have a cyclical area, you can work through that. Again, what we're going to do, because we're running out of time, there's a bit of a formula here. Right. So let's ask the question, what can you expect from your wife, men? Wives, what can you expect from your husband going into this, your marriage, if you're premarital right now? Number one, you can expect legitimately the things that are clearly biblically revealed. And when they're failed, you bet they're going to have a problem. They should have a problem, right?
Right.
Number two, because that doesn't cover all the little details of life, only the expectations that I'm allowed are only the things that have been mutually agreed upon as attainable and necessary.
Right.
Beyond that, get rid of everything.
Right.
You bring a lot in together from your past experiences in life, what you've seen. Sometimes it's just our own fleshy desires of our perfect world, what we want our perfect world to be. And you don't get that. So you've got to work through, if it's clear in the scriptures, then you have your answer.
Right.
Like Sharding cannot lie to me.
Right.
I cannot flirt with other women. These are violations of a biblical call and code upon our life as married people. But all of that other stuff is filtered through that other filter, things that have been mutually agreed upon as attainable and as necessary.
And good luck working it all out.
Yeah. I mean, look, we just made it sound pretty easy in about 30 seconds right there, but
it takes years.
But it can be really difficult and take a lot of patience and a lot of time.
But at least
you can get there.
Exactly. You know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You'll get there.
Right on.
You'll get there. Just keep plugging away.
So if this whetted your appetite a little bit, go listen to episodes 17 and 18. We dive a little bit deeper into it. But failed expectations is a big deal in any marriage, and you got to have some kind of mechanism between you to get through that.
Right.
And so that you're not wounding one another, disappointing one another, and you understand. The biggest killer of all is, again, unspoken expectations, where now you're angry at your partner and you've never even talked about it. You're not entitled to
that. That's illegal.
That's cheating. Yeah. I throw a flag on that. I don't vote for that. I call a 15-yard penalty on that.
But we all do it.
We do. All right. God bless you, gang. Great having you in with us today. Until next time, he loves you so much.
Bye-bye.